The moment I walked back in, everything froze, but only for me. The others were still laughing, chewing, drinking. Someone was mid-toast. Madeline's fork hovered halfway to her mouth. But I wasn't looking at her fork. I was looking at the phone in her lap, the one she'd just yanked her hand away from when I opened the door. It was lit up, unlocked, and open to a text thread I wasn't supposed to see. I saw one message before she flipped it over like it burned her. Tell your husband you're staying late. I'll book the same room. Room? Room. That word hit me like a glass to the face. I stood there like a complete idiot, holding my beer and smiling like some trained house bet, while my insides dropped through the floor. I couldn't even process the sound around me. I just stared at her hand, the one now clenched in her lap, and the sweat forming at her temple. She was wearing the necklace I bought her last anniversary. It made me sick. She caught me looking, and for a split second, one microscopic flicker of truth, her smile cracked. That's all it took. That tiny fracture. I excused myself, again. No one noticed this time. Or maybe they did, and pretended not to. I stepped outside, not for a call. I never even took my phone. I just needed air. Or a wall to scream into. Or both. But I didn't scream. I just sat on Warren's porch swing and stared at the dirt. Thinking. Spinning. Burning. Who was he? How long had this been going on? And how many times had she looked me in the eyes, kissed me goodnight, and lied through her teeth? I didn't want revenge. I didn't want answers. I didn't want to fight. Not yet. I just wanted to rewind 5 minutes and never walk back into that room. But you can't rewind real life. All you can do is watch it break. Slowly, painfully, one uncovered text at a time. And that night, that was only the beginning. I didn't go back inside right away. I sat out there for at least 15 minutes, maybe more, while the December air numbed my fingers and reality peeled away every excuse I wanted to cling to. I should have stormed in and demanded answers. I should have asked her right then and there who booked the room. I should have flipped the table, screamed, cried, anything but sat there like a spineless ghost listening to my own heartbeat suffocate me. But I didn't, because I was raised to be calm, to keep the peace, to be the husband who doesn't jump to conclusions. The problem was, the conclusion had already jumped on me. Eventually, I walked back in. My beer was still on the table, untouched. Madeline gave me that polite little smile she saves for waiters and coworkers she secretly hates. Her eyes didn't meet mine, not even once. I sat down, nodded when someone cracked a joke, and kept pretending, like her. She was in full performance mode now, cutting her chicken, sipping her wine, asking Warren's wife about her yoga retreat. I stared at her hands the entire time. The same hands that typed that message. That sent it to another man. That helped me just last night. God, the thought of her fingers in someone else's hair, it made my ribs hurt. Midway through dessert, I excused myself to the bathroom, but I didn't go there. I turned left instead, into Warren's den where everyone had dumped their coats and bags earlier. I needed space to think. That's when I saw her phone again. It was in her purse. Peeking out. Unlocked. I swear I didn't plan it. I swear I'm not that guy. But my hand moved like it didn't belong to me. And what I saw, it gutted me. The thread wasn't just one message. It was dozens. Weeks worth. Maybe more. Flirty banter. Memes. Late-night selfies. He called her Maddie. I'd never even called her that. There were photos, too. Of them. In a hotel bathroom mirror. In a car. At what looked like a rooftop bar. The same night she told me she was going to help her sister move. And then came the photo that broke me. Her in my hoodie. My favorite hoodie. The one she said she hated because it was too baggy. She'd worn it to his place. Smiling. Hair messy. Nothing underneath. I dropped the phone. Literally. It hit the carpet, and I scrambled to pick it up, heart slamming so hard I thought I'd black out. I didn't even have time to close the thread before I heard footsteps behind me. It was her. She froze in the doorway. Her lips parted. Her mascara had smudged just slightly, and for the first time that night, she looked real, not the polished, lying version of herself she'd been playing all evening. Just real. Scared. Cornered. But I was even more scared. Because in that moment, she didn't even ask what I saw. She just said, I can explain. Not, that's not what it looks like. Not, it's not what you think. Just those 3 words. And the second she said them, I knew she couldn't. She closed the door behind her like we were about to have a private conversation, not a full-blown confrontation. I was still holding her phone, my fingers practically fused to the case. My hands were shaking, but hers weren't. That was the first thing that pissed me off. How calm she was. Like she'd already planned for this moment. Like she knew it was coming eventually and had rehearsed it in front of a mirror. She didn't lunge for the phone. She didn't scream or beg or cry. She just walked over and sat down on the armrest across from me, like this was a civilized chat between adults. I was standing, towering over her, and still somehow I felt small, like she'd taken the power before I even realized there was a war. "Please just listen," she said, not meeting my eyes. "It didn't start how you think." I let out this awful, broken laugh that didn't sound human. "You mean the part where you lied about your sister and wore my hoodie to another man's apartment? That part?" She winced. "Not much. Just enough to let me know I'd hit something raw." Good. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of what I felt in that moment. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said softly. "It wasn't supposed to mean anything." God, that line, that cliché. I could have written it for her. That's how predictable it was. I couldn't believe I had once married someone who could say something so cheap and expect it to patch a hole the size of our life together. "Not supposed to mean anything?" I repeated, almost whispering now. "So was that just a warm-up? A trial affair? Or were you planning a few more meaningless ones before I caught you?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. She looked angry. At me. Like I had no right to be this upset. Like I'd somehow failed her into doing this. "I was lonely," she snapped. "You come home and go straight to your computer. You barely talk anymore. We haven't been intimate in months." "Oh, so it's my fault now," I said, nodding. "I didn't text a stranger and book a room. I didn't sneak out during my friend's dinner party. I didn't lie every time I kissed you goodnight. That's all you, Madeline." "I made a mistake," she said. "No," I said. "You repeated a choice." We stared at each other in that dim little room, surrounded by coats and muffled music and the hollow echo of our own lies. She looked like she wanted to reach out. I took a step back before she could. I handed her the phone. I wish I'd thrown it. But I was still clinging to this stupid thread of dignity I didn't even deserve. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said quietly. "You buried us. And you didn't even bother to bring a shovel." Then I walked out of the room, out of the party, and into the freezing night without even grabbing my coat. She didn't follow me. Not that night. But she did call. Oh, she called. And what came next made everything I'd already seen look tame. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Not while her perfume was still clinging to my jacket and the sound of her voice saying, "It wasn't supposed to mean anything," kept bouncing around inside my skull like a curse. I walked. No direction, no destination. Just street after street in the freezing cold, steam rising from my breath, my hands in my pockets because I'd left my coat at the party like some heartbroken idiot in a coming-of-age movie. I must have looked insane. 17 minutes after I walked out, my phone rang. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't even look at the screen. I knew the pattern already. First call out of panic, second out of guilt, third out of damage control. By the fourth, she'd switched to text. And she did. The first one said, "Please, just talk to me." The second, "You don't know the whole story." The third, "I didn't plan this." That was the one that made me stop walking. I stared at that line for a long time under a flickering streetlight, and I actually laughed out loud. Didn't plan it? Of course she didn't. People like her don't plan to destroy someone. They just do it by accident. Repeatedly. I finally dragged myself to a 24-hour diner, sat alone at the back, ordered a coffee I couldn't drink, and just stared at the steam rising from the cup. That's when I made the mistake of checking her text thread again. I don't know why I did it, like poking an open wound just to see if it still hurts. Spoiler, it did. But this time I scrolled higher than I had before. That's when I found something worse than the photos. There were videos. Not explicit ones, I thank God for that, but videos of them out. Together. In public. At a bar with live music. At a cabin. Him driving. Her laughing. His hand on her leg. Her leaning on his shoulder in a hoodie that didn't belong to me. She said she didn't plan it, but there was a video of her meeting his parents. I paused it and stared at her fake smile, the way she brushed her hair back behind her ear, the way she looked happy. Happier than I'd seen her in months. Maybe years. That was the moment the timeline broke. Because that cabin trip? I remember it clearly. That was the same weekend she said she was helping her friend Angela recover from wisdom tooth surgery. I had dropped her off at Angela's apartment myself. I waited in the car while she ran up to grab her things. She kissed me on the cheek. Told me I was sweet. Said she'd call me later. And she did. From a cabin. With him. I swear, my stomach turned so hard I thought I was going to be sick right there in the booth. I didn't respond to her texts that night. I didn't even go home. I slept in my car 2 blocks from the diner, engine off, curled up in the back seat with my phone still glowing in my hand. But when I woke up the next morning, something had changed. Not in her. In me. Because I didn't just want answers anymore. I wanted to know how deep this thing went. And I was going to find out. Even if it destroyed every last piece of what I thought my marriage was. I'd barely stepped into my apartment, the one we'd shared for 5 years, when my phone buzzed again. I'd turned off notifications hours ago, but this one pushed through. It wasn't from her. It was from an unknown number. No name. No profile picture. Just a text. You don't know half of what she's been doing. If you want proof, meet me. Today. My first instinct was to delete it. I didn't need more pain. I was already drowning in it. But something about the way it was worded, calm, direct, not emotional, made me pause. Whoever it was didn't say, "I'm sorry," or "I need to talk." They said proof. And right then, proof was the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. I replied, "Who are you?" A few seconds passed. Then, someone who thought she was loyal, too. That hit me in the gut. We agreed to meet in a public place, an empty library parking lot of all places. Creepy, I know. I parked and waited, not sure if I was about to get scammed, robbed, or humiliated again. But 5 minutes later, a woman got out of a silver sedan. Early 30s, hair in a tight bun, eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. She walked straight up to my window and tapped lightly. I rolled it down, cautious. "You must be Theo," she said. Her voice was cold, businesslike. "I'm Corinne. I was with Bryce." The name hit me like a gunshot. Bryce. The man from the messages. The man Madeline swore was just someone she barely knew. The man in the photos. The man in the cabin. "You were?" I asked. She nodded. "Not anymore. Not since I found this." She held up a printed screenshot, a text thread. His thread. And there she was, Madeline, laughing at my weekly routine with him. "He doesn't even notice when I'm gone. I could disappear for 3 days and he'd think I'm on a work call," she'd written. There were dozens of messages like that. Disrespecting me. Mocking me. Tearing down everything I thought we'd built together, while someone else laughed with her. Corinne wasn't crying. She looked like someone who had cried already, for days, then burned out and turned into steel. "He did the same to me," she said. Same words. Same tricks. Same routine. She wasn't the only one. And you're not the only one who's been lied to. I swallowed hard. How long? A year. Maybe more. They met at a networking conference in Portland. Lied to me. Lied to you. Traveled together under fake names. They had a whole system. I felt the world tilt. Fake names? Travel? She pulled a USB drive from her coat pocket and placed it in my hand like it was evidence in a trial. Everything's on there. Screenshots. Voicemails. Bookings. Hotel receipts. She wasn't just cheating. She was building a double life. And she used both of us to do it. I couldn't speak. She stepped back from my window, her face unreadable. "I thought you should know before she rewrites the story. Trust me, she will." Then she got in her car and drove off. I didn't even realize my hands were trembling until I dropped the USB in my lap. That night, I plugged it into my laptop. And what I saw? It changed everything. I sat there staring at the USB like it was radioactive. My hands hovered over the keyboard, part of me screaming not to open it. Not because I didn't want to know, I needed to know, but because once I saw it, there'd be no more pretending. No more clinging to hope that this was all a misunderstanding or a one-time lapse. Whatever was on that drive would be the final nail. And I wasn't sure I was ready to feel that kind of death. But I double-clicked anyway. There were folders, organized by month, with names, trips, notes, pictures, voice memos. It was like I'd opened a project file. She'd labeled it MN/BC, her initials and his. Like this was some twisted romantic archive. I clicked into the earliest folder. Portland, nearly 14 months ago. The first file was a photo. Madeline and Bryce at a rooftop bar, the city lights blurred behind them, drinks in their hands, her head against his chest like she belonged there. Her smile wasn't forced or faked, it was glowing. That crushed me more than anything. It was the smile she used to give me, the one I hadn't seen in over a year. Guess I knew where it went. There were screenshots of emails from a burner account she'd created to book flights. Receipts for hotel stays paid in cash. Even Uber trip histories that matched weekends. She'd told me she was volunteering with her old college roommate's nonprofit. Every lie she told me was backed by a perfectly organized digital footprint, the kind you make when you're not sorry, just strategic. Then came the voice memos. I shouldn't have played them, but I did, and what I heard shattered what was left of my spine. One clip started with her laughing, that breathy laugh she used when she thought she was being clever. Then her voice, soft, intimate, almost a whisper. He still thinks I'm helping Angela pack. I told him I'd be back Sunday. He even made me a lunch for the road. Can you believe that? It had a sticky note that said, "Drive safe, my love." I nearly cried, but not for the reason he'd want. Laughter. From Bryce. Then her again. I should win an award for this. Seriously. He's so trusting it's embarrassing. I slammed the lid of my laptop closed so hard I thought I cracked the screen. My chest felt like it had caved in. I had loved this woman. I had defended her. I had blamed myself, told myself I was the problem, that I needed to try harder, talk more, be more romantic or present. Meanwhile, she was out there mocking me over wine and five-star hotels, like I was some charity case she was slowly phasing out. I sat on the floor of our living room for hours. Didn't eat, didn't drink, just stared at the USB in my lap, replaying her words, her tone, the disgust in her voice when she talked about me like I was some obligation she had to manage. But that's when something strange happened. I stopped feeling hurt, and I started feeling calm. Not because it didn't matter, but because it was finally clear. She didn't just betray me emotionally. She dismantled our life with intention. She chose this, over and over. And now I had everything I needed. Not for closure, because I didn't believe in that word anymore, but for truth. And with truth came clarity. The version of her I loved? She didn't exist anymore. And if she was going to treat this like a game, I was done playing defense. The texts didn't stop. The calls came at all hours. For 2 full days, my phone lit up like a warning beacon, and I ignored every single one. It wasn't out of strength, not at first. It was paralysis. The kind of stillness you feel when the air is heavy and your thoughts are louder than any ringtone. I wasn't strong yet, but I was done being confused. She tried every approach. First, guilt. You're scaring me. Please just talk. Then excuses. I didn't know how to end it. I was trapped. Then desperation. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll come to you. And eventually, she did. At exactly 12:03 a.m. on a Tuesday, she showed up. No warning. No knock at first. I just saw the movement through the peephole. Her coat barely covering the burgundy dress she wore to that party. The night, everything unraveled. Her makeup was smeared, hair tangled like she'd been crying or hadn't slept in days. But I didn't open the door. Not right away. I just stood behind it, breathing slow, letting her feel the weight of being on the outside for once. Then came the knock. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't aggressive. Just soft. Too soft. Like she still thought she could win me over with gentleness, with that performative fragility she leaned on whenever she got caught. I counted the seconds. 10, 20, 30. Finally, I opened it. Her eyes flicked up fast, glassy and wide. She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand before she could speak. The silence that followed was unbearable, for her. Not for me. I wanted her to sit in it, drown in it, taste it. I know everything, I said. And I've heard enough of your voice in those recordings to last me a lifetime. Her lips parted. Her expression cracked. She hadn't expected that. I could tell. She thought I'd be angry, unhinged, maybe even crying. But I was calm, colder than she'd ever seen me. She reached for my arm. Typical. I stepped back. No, I said firmly. You don't get to touch me anymore. She started to cry then. Real tears, maybe. But I wasn't moved. Not anymore. Not after hearing her mock me over red wine and foreign bedsheets. You don't understand, she whispered. It wasn't about him. It was never about Bryce. I was just what? I asked. Bored? Lonely? Tired of me? So you built a second life and narrated it like I was some punchline? She shook her head, but she didn't deny it. I stepped aside. For a second, she looked hopeful. Thought I was letting her in. But I didn't point toward the living room. I pointed toward the hallway where I'd placed her packed suitcase. Everything she owned, her clothes, her shoes, her charger, her favorite tea, all zipped up neatly, sitting by the wall like a guest who'd overstayed their welcome. You're not sleeping here tonight, I said. Or ever again. She covered her mouth. It wasn't a sob, more like a shocked gasp, like I'd hit her where it finally hurt. She looked around the place like she was seeing it for the first time, or maybe the last. I didn't think you'd actually throw me out, she muttered. Then you haven't been paying attention to the man you married, I said. And maybe that was your first mistake. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just picked up the suitcase slowly, her hands trembling, her face pale. And when she stepped into the hallway, I followed behind, not out of kindness, but because I didn't trust her to leave without twisting the story one last time. When the door closed behind her, I didn't feel relief. Not yet, but I felt something close. And I knew this wasn't the end. Because people like her, they don't leave quietly. They come back, especially when they realize you're serious. 3 weeks passed. No texts, no calls, nothing, just quiet. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I started to breathe again. Not the shallow, survival-type breaths I'd been taking during that hollow final year of our marriage, but real ones. Full, steady, like my lungs remembered how to work without the weight of her on my chest. The apartment felt different without her. Calmer, like the walls weren't holding their breath anymore either. I rearranged the furniture, took down every photo of us, donated the throw pillows she insisted on, even changed the curtains. It was petty, sure, but it helped. What helped even more? I started rebuilding me. I dusted off the passion project I'd shelved for years, my woodworking business. Turns out, creating something with your hands is the perfect way to remind yourself you still exist. Orders trickled in at first, but then they grew. A couple of viral posts, a shout-out from a design page, and suddenly I had clients booking weeks in advance. My phone was buzzing again, but this time it was for me, for something I built. Then, just when I started thinking she might stay gone for good, she came back. Not in person this time, but through a friend. Warren, the same guy who hosted that party, texted me out of the blue. Said he ran into Madeline and she asked about me. Asked how I was doing. Said she might reach out. I didn't respond right away, but I knew what that meant. A few days later, there it was. Her name on my screen. A message, not a call. Short, sweet, manipulative. Hey, just wondering how you've been. I've been thinking about everything. Hope we can talk sometime. That version of me from months ago, the broken one sitting in a diner parking lot, trembling in the dark, he might have replied. He might have hoped she'd changed or begged for an apology. But not this version. Not the one who'd rebuilt himself from splinters. So I replied, but not the way she expected. I'm doing better than ever. I hope you find peace. But we have nothing left to talk about. She left it on read. No reply. No goodbye. And that was all I needed. Because she had finally lost her audience. And I had finally found my life again. Not the one I planned. Not the one I built around her. But the one that came after. And strangely, it was better.